So in this video, I want to talk about the XFL. Now, if you, of course, I'm sure many of you have seen the big news came out yesterday with the score, and many other people are posting that the XFL has lost an estimated $60 million in just the 2023 season alone. Of course, this is the first season under The Rock. He purchased them a couple years ago after they folded in 2020, mainly because of COVID. But for the third time, once again, XFL trying to come into the stage in the football scene, it hasn't worked out once again. And this kind of continues on to a question of, is there going to be a second year for the XFL? Now, for the USFL, we are underway with the second season with that as well. We don't know how long that's going to last, but they did make it past their first season. For XFL, it's not for certain if it's going to happen. But in my opinion, if I had to guess, I do believe there will be a second season. I think The Rock has too much ego, too much pride to kind of admit failure and defeat. And I think he will try and push for a second season. But he's going to have to make some severe changes. If he's going to keep it the same way he did the first year, it's not going to work out. And that will be the end of the XFL. And probably be permanently too. After 3 straight failures for the XFL, I think it's going to kind of wrap up the people trying to try and revive the league. But for this video, once again, I'm going to talk about the failure, why I think the XFL did so bad this year. This is also going to incorporate the USFL, not saying that they've also had a total failure as well as a success, but I think they need to be tied in as well with the XFL because they're in the same boat together in terms of trying to last in this business. And I'm going to give my reasons what they need to do, or what, my opinion, what they should do to have a chance to become a stable long-term option alongside the NFL stage. So the big one for both of them is just that they're going to struggle with is just not having star power. They don't have a Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, any top player at each position. They don't have names like that. Of course, for college players coming out, their eyes are set on the NFL stage. No one's working that hard. No one, a top player in college football, is not saying, I want to be good enough to make it to the XFL, make it to the USFL. That's kind of, if you're not good enough for the NFL stage, you fall back to that. And that's going to be probably always be the problem for the XFL and USFL is they're never going to be able to get the top names to play there. Now later on, I will throw maybe a possibility that another possibility that could happen for the future for both teams that might allow that to happen. But we'll get into that later. But for right now, the big problem is just they don't have the star power names, nor could they even have an attempt to even get them or steal them from the NFL. They don't have the money, the facilities, accommodations, anything like that. There's nothing that the XFL and USFL have that can rival the NFL. It's just not possible. The next one is advertisements. Outside of FS1, I don't see too much. I don't see commercials. I don't see broadcasts of either or leagues. Certainly, does FS1 immensely help both these leagues having them on their stations? Absolutely. But if you want to maximize having the most amount of fans, especially trying to take advantage of the football community, the football fan base, you're going to have to do a lot more in pushing that outside of FS1, especially for ESPN. If you want to do like local commercials like TNT, ABC, anything like that, you just have to get your name out there and you have to make it more available than just one station, especially for people who maybe for cable or whatever that may be, don't have that channel. You have to make it at least available on local stations for people to see. Even when you look at the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, even some of their big games are always on local stations, even though they're not, maybe at times it's not always on there, always playing. They put it in front of everybody on local stations. Why? Because it's just more easy for people to access, and it gets much more viewership on there. Same thing for XFL and USFL. They need to do something similar and try and get some deal done or something along that range. Even if they can't broadcast their games on local channels, at least get the commercials out there. At least get the name out there on those stations. You need to do more than just outside. You need to do more than just FS1. FS1 is a great start, but you need to really build off of that. And the third thing I want to get to is it's 2 parts. It's about the teams, locations, and just the set number of teams they have. So for XFL and USFL, they both have only 8 teams. Of course, they're combined. That's 16 in total. It's not good enough. Of course, I get it. You can't have 30 teams right off the bat starting off a new platform, a new league. You can't just all of a sudden have the same amount of teams as the NFL does. It's just not possible. It's not going to last long. You don't have enough money to support that. I understand that. But the problem is just the location set of it. Again, 8 teams is tough because you really have to maximize those 8 settings, those 8 locations. You have to pick spots that are really going to maximize that. I'm kind of just going to switch over to a map, and I kind of pinned both the XFL and USFL teams on here. So in the red is the XFL teams, and the blue is the USFL teams. Look at where most majority of said leagues are. They're mostly in the South, specifically Texas. So the XFL has 3 teams in Texas. 3 teams in Texas. If we break that down for the South, when I was bringing down the South in general, Missouri, I don't know if you would really say the South, if you want to cut that off, but I kind of added them on there. That would be for XFL at 62% of their teams. If you want to take Missouri off and say no, they're not part of the South, of course it would drop, so it'd be around in the 50s range. But regardless, you can't have majority of your teams in one area of the country. Specifically, you can't have 3 teams in one state alone. I'm sorry, it's a waste. I get Texas is huge on football. Of course, we see so many times of how big they are on high school football alone. But if you want to really broaden this league and really make XFL a stable long-term option, you have to take those teams, at least 2 teams out, and expand. I don't see any teams in New York City. I don't see in LA. I don't see anything in Boston. Don't see anything in Chicago. Those are big markets that I think that they really need to push. And the fact that you put 3 teams in one state is a huge miss and a big loss for them. And that's, I think, a big reason why that they just lost so much money and hit a failure this year. Of course, there's plenty of other reasons. Like I said, just lack of advertisements, lack of star power. But if you're only going to have 8 teams to start off with, you have to really hit on all of them and really maximize your opportunity on that. I think having 3 teams in one state is a huge waste for that. To really, to be specific and tell you all the teams, location-wise, they have Houston, Arlington, San Antonio, Orlando, DC, Seattle, St. Louis, and Vegas. For the most part, it's not the best. St. Louis, definitely for attendance wise, they did really well. They did. I don't know if they were. I'm pretty sure they may have been the best team for attendance and all that. I know it was very successful there. Glad to see St. Louis is getting a team, though it's only the XFL. Hopefully, the NFL will eventually go back to St. Louis. It sucks that they kind of lost the Rams that eventually went to, obviously, LA. Outside of that, Vegas, I do agree with Vegas. That's a great option. I know they were a team originally. Many people are starting to go to Vegas. You have, of course, the Vegas Golden Knights that went there in 2017. You have the Las Vegas Raiders that just moved there a few seasons ago. You are going to be getting the Oakland Athletics, which is they'll be moving there soon. They just purchased land to build a stadium there. You already have the WNBA, who just won the title there. Just won the title this past season. So Vegas is a great spot for that. I think they definitely definitely was a great pick. I know they were one of the original teams for the XFL, but it was still a great job for them to keep that team, and especially a soon-to-be huge market. If you don't want to say already, they are a big market. I think they will eventually be that with so many teams trying to get there. And also NBA will probably be when they do the expansion, will probably be a number 1 destination for them as well. So I think for St. Louis and Vegas, I think you did a good job with that. DC, I'm not a big fan of. I just don't know if DC is a huge overall a huge sports market to do a great job. Of course, you have the Washington Capitals and the Wizards, but I just don't know for football if that's a great long-term option. Maybe in the near future, if they were successful and want to expand to that, sure, that could be a spot. But I think for right now, I don't want to say I don't like DC. I think the much better spot would have been New York City or Boston, around that range. Orlando, I think you missed on that one as well. I think the much better pick is Miami, with, of course, the Miami Dolphins and just having a bigger market as well. I think that's a huge miss right there by the XFL as well. And once again, just getting back to Texas, I think the problem is you just have way too many teams in one state. The best, I don't know if you want to say the best option is Houston, but at least regardless of which one you want to pick, there should be just one team in Texas, and you could have taken those two and maybe went to LA and New York City or wherever you want to go to. It's a huge miss and a huge just terrible management of placement of teams. And if we switch to the USFL, once again in the South, you have 4 teams. You have 50% of your league in one area. If you look at this, if you want to do it just in total, just in general, if you want to do the total for 16 teams, you have 9 of the 16 in the South. That's 56%. This is not the SEC. All right, this is not just one conference. This is your league, and this is a horrible management, horrible placement of teams. If you want to succeed, you have to spread out evenly. You have to get a variety of different people. I don't see a team whatsoever in Ohio. I don't see a team in Georgia, New York, Michigan. If you want, once again pushing upwards to Boston, you want to say like Connecticut or Massachusetts, California. I don't see one. Colorado. There's so many bigger markets that I don't see teams for placements here, and I think it's a huge miss for both leagues, for XFL and USFL. I think that it's just horrible placement, especially when you combine both of them. You have 4 teams in Texas, Houston having 2 of them. I'm sorry, it's like I think if you really want to take this seriously, I think you really need to reconsider the locations for Texas. You need to take 2 teams out and put them in bigger markets. I truly believe that will help expand the league, expand the brand, and get more viewership. Now, to kind of come, to sum up, what do I think that these 2 teams need to do? Well, obviously, you just heard me say they need to do a better job with placement of teams. They're way too closely together. They're not spread out as much as they should. That's a big problem right there. So I think first and foremost, you have to look at the state of Texas and remove 2 teams from there if you look at it from the XFL perspective. And you have to really push to get a much bigger market to advertise and get more viewership on there. Second, I think most importantly, I also see a lot of people say, and probably the obvious one, the XFL and USFL should merge. Both these 2 leagues alone are not going to last. I know they're trying to fight with the NFL, but they're also fighting with each other. And the cost of that is they're both going to kill each other, and we're just going to be left once again with the NFL. If they want to be a long-term stable option, they're going to have to combine, similar like how it was in the history with the NFL, where you had 2 different leagues, and eventually they combined. That's how you got your Super Bowl. So for no doubt, if you go from 2 8-league teams to 1 16-team leagues, that sounds far much better and far more appealing as opposed to just having these small mini leagues that you have right now. I think it sounds better, it looks better. You have a much broader audience overall for cities. Once again, just going back to my first take, you need to realign the teams and also try and push for an expansion if that's possible. Of course, when you look at the NFL or the XFL right now, it doesn't look like that. When you lost $60 million, I'm sure the last thing The Rock wants to do maybe is spend more money on said teams and potentially up the depth that he's already at right now. But I think right now you kind of don't have a choice. If you really want this to work, you're going to have to put more money into it and really just once again boost the advertisements, change the locations, get more expansions. I think that's a big thing there too. Another one, if you want to look at the map, another one too for LA is San Diego. That's a team that of course, a city that just lost their team not too long ago. I think that could be a great spot there as well. If I wouldn't say Oakland, because it seems like Oakland's losing everybody, so I wouldn't say it's kind of a dead end there. But once again, I say Colorado. I think Denver could be a great spot. Chicago, New York City, though you have one in New Jersey, which they're pretty close to each other right there. But New York City could be a spot. Like I said, just LA. There's other spot, Georgia, Atlanta, like we just said. I think there's just better spots. Ohio, you want to say Cincinnati, Cleveland. Once again, I think there needs to be better placement of teams and really push for bigger markets, bigger cities. I think it's really going to help this league last. Now, the alternate option I said earlier when I said about the star power is maybe we can have a similar way like we have the NHL and MLB have farm teams. Let's say if you wanted to combine both leagues instead of trying to compete with the NFL, work alongside them, and like I said, for I guess more an easier option is or easier comparison is MLB have farm teams. If you are drafting, let's say, a top quarterback, you want him to sit. Let's say right now we have the Tennessee Titans with Will Levis, and we already had this, the combination of the USFL and XFL merging, and they are farm teams. Instead of Will Levis sitting on the bench for a year or two, he can go down to that farm league and get some reps in, start playing. He's not playing elite talent right off the bat in his rookie year. It is a little bit better talent, I would say, than maybe college football, at least for like the skill set of some players, a little bit better than the overall landmark for college football. It slowly eases you into playing, and then once he's ready for the NFL, it's not a huge leap from college, where not everyone's not a 5-star recruit, to the NFL, where it's all the top talent. It's kind of like an in between. So instead of college to NFL, it's college, farm team, NFL, and I think it'd be a much easier, better transition to the NFL as opposed to jumping from college to NFL. I think it would definitely help. It will still ease players into it, not just quarterbacks, but any players in general. I know the kind of concern would be just taking additional hits as well. But I think overall, if you were worried about projects, especially for quarterbacks, that this would definitely be a great option for you. Definitely get teams more acclimated. Like once again, MLB for NHL. If they're not good enough to start right away, you send them down to the minors. To give you an example, Sabres, their farm team is the Rochester Americans. If we have Jack Quinn and JJ Paterka, they weren't good enough when we first drafted them. They went down to Rochester, started playing great, and now they're with these Buffalo Sabres right now. Same thing could be applied for any team. The only problem would be that you would have to, if you want to do that, you would have to have one team per team. You can't have 16 farm teams and 32 NFL teams. That would kind of not really align too well. But once again, that could be definitely an option if you didn't want to. That could definitely be a huge long-term option for the XFL and USFL, is to potentially try and be a farm team if that's the NFL wanted to go. But it's an option, either or. I think those are the only two options that really I could see long-term for both these teams. Once again, being stable long-term options alongside the NFL or trying to compete against them is either both leagues or both USFL and XFL just merging and being one. And obviously, taking off with that, or doing the same thing but working alongside the NFL and being somewhat of a farm team, a minor league football team. I think those are the only two options, in my opinion, that is only going to work for them to be stable. Outside of that, if they're just going to continue being their own two entities, in a year or two, we're probably not going to have both of them. I mean, as of right now, USFL seems to be a much better spot than the XFL, but even with that, I don't know how much farther the USFL can go. I'm sorry, they might have a few more years out of them. May only have one more year after the second season. We don't know. But I think if they're just going to keep going by themselves, it's going to fail. And especially for the XFL, for The Rock, if he's not going to make serious changes, he's going to lose the same amount of money next season, or if not much more, and it's going to be the end of it. And so, unfortunate, because I want to see football. I definitely do. Once again, I mean, both leagues haven't caught my eye, really. USFL, I watched a good amount the first season. This year, I haven't. And the XFL, I only caught week 1 in the championship game. And there was a few games here and there that I would watch, but it didn't catch my eye. And like I said, at some point, there's only so much you can do with the league to really grasp that much viewership as opposed to the NFL. But they already have everything stable. They already have the money into it, as opposed to these guys who are going to be taking a long time if they want to get to that level. But overall, I think they need to make serious changes like that. They need to combine. And I think, once again, if they're going to keep going the way they are, we're going to be without both USFL and XFL, and we're going to be going back to the original, just single NFL, and having the offseason with nothing. I really hope these guys succeed. I really hope we have a great option in the offseason NFL to watch during the summer, and then vice versa. So let me know your thoughts down below on the situation. Do you think the XFL will have a season next year? And also let me know your thoughts down below on my opinion if they should merge and become one. With that being said, thank you for watching, and see you next one.